For me, I love VC because I love two things. I love smart people, founders, and I love different projects. AI is a technology whose impact is grossly overestimated in the short term, massively underestimated in the long term. How do you teach teenagers that it is good to try different things, it is good to take risks, it is good to fail? Well, maybe not necessarily good to fail, but it's okay to fail. That failing is part of the journey.
David, thank you very much for coming in and joining us.
Thank you very much, Mark. Good to meet you.
So you're the CEO and co-founder of the Yield Lab, right?
So the Yield Lab was a project that originally started in the US back in 2014, where a gentleman there decided that early stage agri-food tech companies were ripe for innovation, ripe for support. A gentleman by the name of Paul Finnerty and Brian, they brought that model to Ireland in 2017. And then I joined the team in 2020 when we expanded out to become a European-wide fund. So in 2020, we raised 55 million euro. And since then, we've become the largest and most active early-stage agri-food tech VC investor all across Europe.
So just going through your background, we would have known a few people from ezetop. I think originally I got in touch. I got in touch via Jim Carr at the time, and Jerry as well, which I would have done a bit of work for over the years. And then you'd worked in McKinsey before that, if I'm not mistaken. And then you were in Delta for a while. So you've kind of got a full gambit.
So my background started off with computer science in Trinity. So I am a computer scientist by heart. My relaxation time is writing code to do stupid things. That's who I am. I'm a computer scientist by trade. But that led me into investment banking and the Merrill Lynch of the world, and that led me into consulting, which was McKinsey. And that led me to the startup world where I could experiment and do interesting things, which led me to ezetop. And ezetop was a company founded by a gentleman by the name of Mark Roden, and it was designed to internationalize mobile phone top-up and be kind of a new currency, a new way of supporting the diaspora communities. And that's where, as you mentioned, Jim Carr, Gary, I met all these people in 2010, 2011. So for me, it was a great way to jump off the cliff and not necessarily be worried about what happened.
Did you join when it was doing really, really well, or did you join the kind of the turnaround phase, or what kind of phase did you have when you?
When I joined ezetop, we were 30 people. When I left ezetop, we were 180. When I joined, I was the only person on the online team. In the next 3 months, we moved on to where Laura was on my left shoulder, Sabine was on my right elbow, and if I lean my head back at all, I hit Jenny on the back of my head. So we were literally crammed like sardines into what was an apartment. Like we'd taken over 2 apartments, and so I was there. Shall I say the second phase? It's very much the startup phase of ezetop, and before it became Ding, which is what we were there for the transformation, the choosing of the name, the rebranding, and all those sort of things. So yeah.
What was it like then getting into the world of VCs? What's it like day to day? Was it just you come from the consultant world, then working in e-commerce, you had the scale, you've seen the big bang of that. What was it like to be on the other side of the fence?
So for me, I love VC because I love two things. I love smart people, founders, and I love different projects. So McKinsey was fantastic because every 2 to 6 weeks you're joining a new project, you're launching a new pharmaceutical drug, you're saving a UK bank, whatever it might be. But that's every 2 to 6 weeks you have a new big problem to solve. ezetop is great because it's a startup world, but that's a startup journey for 2 years. It's one problem for 2 years. How do you grow online sales? How do you deal with diaspora communities? The VC is the best of both worlds. Because in VC, we have a portfolio in the Yield Lab of 32 different companies. So that's 32 different problems we're trying to solve. Every Monday we get together, we talk about a significant proportion of our companies. And so the ability to hopefully provide one piece of wisdom or one piece of good advice into a Scottish company dealing with pesticides or a French company dealing with AI, to dip in and out of these things, that's very appealing to me. That's what VC really worked for my personality.
Was there a reason why you chose the industry that you chose? And
as in VC or agri-food tech?
In terms of food tech, agri-food tech, because you could have gone down, I suppose, a variety of different industries. There's obviously so many different ways to go about it, but you seem like you're very conscious in that decision.
That was a very deliberate decision. So I had worked at Delta for a long time. we had a successful technology fund, and that was very interesting, again, dealing with early stage startups. What I thought was very appealing was the combination in Ireland. We have a few unique things here. We are recognised globally as one of the best exporters of high quality food. Our agriculture industry is second to none. It is very advanced, very sophisticated. It is very, very high quality. Our entrepreneurial and innovative ecosystem is second to none. We have, huge supports, be it Enterprise Ireland, be it all the supports that exist, be it the fantastic cohort of founders and smart people who are driving that. Huge innovation ecosystem. Those two things have never really met. We've never really done agri-food tech innovation. The co-ops have, the Kerrys of the world have, they are very innovative companies, but, outside the big multinationals, not so much. Yes, there's some successful companies building, slurry tanks and hardcore machinery, but, that's a very different proposition than agri-food tech. So for me, the first appeal was this combination of Ireland's unique agricultural experience and Ireland's unique innovation experience. The second thing is global warming, climate change, sustainability. We know that climate change is real. We all know that unless we do something to fix it, we're going to be in serious trouble. So we have to do something. We have to actively do something to fix climate change. We know that globally, 33% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from putting food on the table. From farm to fork, it contributes 33% of all greenhouse gas emissions. Actually, the EPA for Ireland recently, the recent studies, is 37% of Irish emissions from putting food on the table. So there is no way we can contemplate solving climate change without the agriculture industry being part of that conversation. I mean, part of that change. We can't just ignore a third of the source of greenhouse gas emissions. So for me, it was a case of, we could here in Ireland, with unique agricultural experience, unique innovation experience, and this driving factor that, climate change is real and we're going to have to fix it. Those are the three real pillars of my belief that, starting the Agri-Food Tech Fund and joining Paul and launching the ULab Europe was a very important thing to do.
Tell me about some of the companies that you're engaging with or working with that are using technology as an enabler. And in this case, we're always interested in AI ones, but if there's other ones you want to bring through, let us know.
So we are an Agri-Food Tech Fund. Everything we do is technology. Now, some of that is life science technology. Some of that is engineering technology and so on. So we have a broad range of technology companies. We just invested in a fantastic Irish company called Glassport Bio. They have a carbon abatement and methane abatement solution. So basically you install them in their solution into the slurry tanks of farms. It's a device. It outputs their particular solution, and that will stop the slurry tank emitting carbon dioxide. If you install it on the conservative side, if we rolled it out to every dairy farm in Ireland, on the conservative side, it'd be like taking 500,000 cars off the road.
500,000 cars?
It's that level of impact.
Wow.
Now, that is a very sophisticated scientific project, very sophisticated technology to get to this space. But it is not necessarily kind of hardcore AI, if you know what I mean, or hardcore technology. We have those companies as well. We have a company in Scotland that is developing biological pesticides, so non-chemical, very, shall we say, kind to the environment pesticides. A very successful company. It's doing very well. But it's interesting, they probably spent, Shireen, she's a fantastic CEO. She was a professor in Glasgow University. She spent probably about 10 or 15 years developing their first product. What the change that AI has made to her workflow and her ability now to generate a second, third and fourth project. Now, granted, it's informed by her first one, which took a long time to do, but her ability to iterate and find new projects, find new formulations, AI has transformed that. So we have a lot of AI companies. It's really at the transforming both the product innovation cycle, but also their ability to provide insight and provide smart things.
I love the example of where, obviously, between 10 to 15 years of understanding the problem, iterating, coming up with all the different types of solutions, working through that, and then having a general consensus, but then using AI to next 3 or 4 iterations of that product or improving it. So I could imagine that you're able to maybe use ChatGPT or Copilot or Claude to do further idea generations, or then using tools like Figma for
exactly.
for kind of frameworks. And then you've got, or wire captions. And then you've got like Lovable that could create these demo apps that could actually make it alive, and then get feedback from a focus group or surveys in real time. And then based on that feedback and insights, iterate it further, go through the different steps again. And you'll have like a prototype that could go to market, and you could generate feedback even quicker. But now with something that is like literally could be the difference for their economy or not in Brazil, it's huge, like literally huge. From a personal level, how do you use AI every day to day, that to make yourself be more effective? And
so normally I curse AI with my soul every morning. It is the bane of my life.
Is this because of the hype cycle, or is it just more?
No, not because of the hype cycle. Because we're VC, everything's a hype cycle. Last hype cycle was everything was a blockchain company. Before that, everything was a mobile company. Before that, everything was a cloud company. Just every company is an AI company now, and that's just fine. You tune that out. And I'm slightly being facetious about AI being the bane of my life, but my email inbox has been destroyed. My email inbox today, when I wake up in the morning, has about 50 emails in it, all of which are excellently crafted, all of which are rubbish. Which are, hi David, we met in McKinsey 15 years ago, and I developed an ag tech startup that is excellent and is a perfectly crafted email about some deal, and it all comes down to follow this link and give us your credit card details. But it's a very, very well executed AI generated email that Google is not killing in spam, which is really annoying. So maybe my frustration is more with Google's spam filter than it is with all these AI things. But it has really destroyed my ability to be discerning about deal flow. Because now, if I get any cold emails at all, I am very, very skeptical about it, because chances are I'm not detecting the fact that it's AI. So from a facetious perspective, AI is the bane of my life from that way. And that's a really genuine problem.
Let's start with the negative.
It's really negative because it destroys my morning every morning. From a positive perspective, we use AI a lot for analysis. We use AI a lot for historic analysis of our deal flow pipeline. So we see about 6,000 companies on a regular basis. Where were they? What sectors were they in? So we have that in a large database, and we can ask questions. What sectors spiked in 2021? What sectors were good? What source of deals were good for us? So we can we use that a lot to interrogate and to try and learn and trying to focus where next we'll find source of deals. And so it's a, should we say, more refined way of interrogation a database. It will be one use of our AI. The second thing that we use AI for a lot is summarizing meetings and all that, all that very basic stuff. I'd still love if there was a better note taker for Zoom, because all our pitches are on Zoom. And I've yet to find a good note taker.
Have you tried Otter?
I've tried them all. And so the frustration for me is, I'm working at the moment on just taking the pure transcript and inputting into Gemini and ChatGPT and just getting it better and better and better.
Because Gemini is now taking the notes as well. Have you tried that?
So that it'll take them all in, and it'll produce a summary. But my frustration with the summary is it has yet to determine what I think is key information.
Right. Okay.
And that's where my frustration comes from. So if I were to do a summary of this meeting, let's be more simple. Someone sends me in a pitch and we do the pitch and it's 30 minutes long. And I ask AI, either Zoom default or Otter, any of these, summarize the meeting. It will summarize it as, Jeff spoke about sales. Jane said they're going to launch into new markets. I don't care. I want to write in my notes, Jeff promised 1.2 million of sales in 2023. I want, what I find the problem, my challenge with the summaries is I don't want a summary, I want the synthesis. I don't want the generic view of what this conversation was about. I want the key facts picked out and only the key facts picked out, if you know what I mean. Like the fact that Jeff spoke about sales is obvious. Jeff's going to speak about sales. That's of no interest to me. I want the actual, only 3 key figures that Jeff said about how many sales he's going to get next year, the year after, and the year after. And so what I'm trying to do at the moment is I've given up on the Otters and all those of the worlds because they keep going far too generic. They think being, shall we say, being all-encompassing and broad is useful for me. I'd much rather have a shorter, more concise, 2 or 3 facts out of it. And so what I'm doing now is just taking the transcript and shoving into ChatGPT, shoving into Gemini and saying, look, here, just extract the 3 things of it. And I'm trying to get a Zapier workflow going with our CRM system, so it'll actually drop those facts into it. Because what we do at the moment, we have a CRM system for our deal flow, and we're there taking the notes and the call directly into it. Because really, all we care about is how much they're raising, at what valuation, what that run rate is going to be, what their sales are today, what their sales projections for the next 3 years. Like it's a couple of key facts that we mostly care about at the very first stage of the conversation, and to put into the CRM system so we can track that over time. The fact that we did a 20-minute conversation about general sales is not particularly interesting to me. So it's that's my challenge with those note-taking AIs at the moment, and much more summaries and syntheses.
Yeah. So I think the way you're doing it at the moment is probably the only way you can do it, currently. But I would expect by the end of the year for it to change. It's funny because when I was using Otter, when I was doing a podcast, it actually said to me, ask this question, this is a nice follow-up.
Oh, cool.
Real live.
Yeah.
So that was, for me, that was a lovely iteration of feature that actually spotted the gap.
Yeah.
What I find it particularly good is on a Sunday, it will send me an update that says, these are all the open loops that you need to follow up on, and these are your upcoming meetings that are coming through. Here's some preparation. So that's particularly good. But when you want to save time and energy and you want to kind of refine it down and understand the problem you're going to solve, I could see why you want to iterate it further. But I would expect it's only a matter of time. But
definitely, it's coming, and it's going to be very powerful. Fathom we found to be good. Fathom has been the closest we found. It's still not good enough, but we're getting there.
It blows my mind that only 5% of our listeners actually subscribe to the podcast. We've got one favour to ask. Please, can you subscribe to the podcast? If you like our content, you subscribing will make a huge difference to the guests that we can get on the show, and also be a voice for AI applied across Ireland, but doing it the right way. Now back to the show. So I'm guessing it'd be pretty straightforward for you to use something like Manus to go and do really, really detailed research and analysis on a particular sector, industry, refine it down further, and then get some really lovely visualizations on that if you use like on top of Claude or interactive charts, and then try to build it out. Are you using those kind of tools as well?
We are. We are. One of the challenges we have is VCs like investing in mousetraps. We don't like investing in slightly better mousetraps. What I mean by that is we like investing in new things, new innovative things. So we use AI a lot for, how big is the dairy processor market? Conversations I had with someone today. How many dairy processors are in the world? What's their average revenue? All these sort of things. So AI is great at kind of that primary research. The bit that where our added value comes from and AI cannot do is, okay, if we were to launch this new feature, launch this new product that would change the way entirely the dairy processors function, what would that look like? And there's no way AI can do that. Like that's purely only from us talking to the dairy processors. Dairy processors are people who collect all the milk from all the farmers and make it into all the different dairy products. So if you say to AI, what happens if we make all the trucks electric and change the way they route and change the way the dairy processors sell? Like those are kind of very fundamental questions. So what we use AI to get the basic information, get us smart about the current world today, the state of play, and then we talk with our industry experts. We talk with the people we know to go to the next level. AI sometimes get us to prompt questions that'll ask those, but it's the next level, it's the next iteration that is where we're still talking to people.
Where do you feel where companies are putting out their value proposition? AI is a big part of that in terms of the differentiator that is positioning. I think I read today in the Sunday Business Post that Intercom have put out like a $1 million kind of money back guarantee if Finn doesn't work as expected. We had Fergal from Intercom a couple of weeks ago talking about the value they're getting and some of the money they're actually making from us. With all these large valuations, the run rate, the reality of what's actually happening in terms of trying to close out deals, in terms of getting customers rather than sweetheart deals, is it almost like impossible for these companies actually to make it through to the next stage versus like where they're hyped at versus the real revenue they're actually generating? versus, or is it just still based on users? Because when I look at the users, I'm thinking, well, are they really still using it? Because for a lot of people I know, is you'll try these AI products once or twice, hand over your email, but then you're done. You're moved on to the next one because there's so many different types of shiny toys. How do you keep them on? And most importantly, how do you get them paying for the usage?
For me, as I looked as a VC, I think it comes back to, does a company have AI in its title, or does the company have AI in its product? Is this just an AI company because it's cool and it's hyped, and then we'll get a good valuation and we'll go on, and we might attract some users? Or is the AI delivering an actual value add? Is it delivering something different? Is it changing the outcome? So, for example, we have a company in the south of France that does not have AI in its name, but AI is at the core of its product. It predicts the oxygenation levels of water, which is a very important fact, because if you don't know the oxygenation levels of water, you cannot feed the fish at a good time. And if you feed the fish with no oxygen in the water, the fish all die. That's very bad. Bad for fish farms, bad for the environment. It's also related to wastewater. You should only release waste into water when it's high oxygenation levels. So oxygenation levels are very, very important. Today, it's all historical. This company is able to do it forward-looking purely through AI. But if you read their website, AI, it's not, AI or BioSynor, the AI company. It's not, AI is not anywhere, but it is the core part of what they do.
So on the flip side, are you actually saying to them, tell people it's AI? No. So you're actually saying...
But we're not saying tell people it's AI. We're also not saying don't tell people it's AI. They are selling to some of the largest fish companies in the world based on the power of their technology, based on the business case of, if you implement our technology, we can improve your revenue.
But it just feels like every leader's asked, what's your AI strategy? Where is it being brought into the product? What revenue is? So is that just the marketing, or you wouldn't be saying to your companies that you're supporting with, come on, let's market it a bit more in terms of the reach or product or what you're doing as a differentiator? Or in that case, they don't need to differentiate because they're just saying this technology is an enabler. Here's the outcome. We don't even talk about it.
So for us, it really depends on the customer the audience, shall we say. Their customer audience don't care about AI. Their customer audience care about generating more revenue, saving costs in the fish farms. That's all they care about. Their investor audience do care about AI. And so in their investor deck, AI is much more important. There's a much more prominent positioning in it. So it really is, about their customer, but the customer in the sense of, is this the customer for the revenue? Sorry, the customer for the product, is the customer for their shares? Who's the customer for? So a fish farm in Argentina doesn't care about AI. An investor in Europe does.
Yeah.
They see the power of it. They see the implications. So it really is an important tag, an important marketing tag, but that's not to say it's a bad thing.
Yeah. From the literacy perspective, we had Patricia and we had Sean, both being guests on the show, from the advisory council with the Dáil na Oireachtas last couple of days, getting questioned by Malcolm and a few others. And they were talking about the importance of literacy, and they were talking about, making a decision to actually be seen as a bit of a leader rather than a follower. And regulation is probably going to be too far behind before it actually catches up, and literacy is probably the best defense. Do you think that's important? Do you think that's overhyped? Do you think it's this is something that we don't necessarily need to start to change around our education structure? Do you think there's a bit of an overhype in terms of the impact it's going to have across the country, across the world? Where's your kind of thoughts on that?
So I think AI literacy is very important. I think if we put it purely on the education system to deliver, the education system in Ireland is excellent, but none of us became good at computers because of our computer class in school. When I was in school, we were taught computers on computers that were 10 years out of date. If we turn to an education system to teach people, and expect the education system on its own, in my view, to deliver a population at the forefront of AI, that's not going to work. Our education system, by design and rightly or wrongly, is not something that can turn on a dime and deliver it. It's not to say we shouldn't engage the education system. It's not to say we shouldn't utilize that tool. But saying, "Oh, we'll educate our youth and that'll be fine. We'll be done," is not enough. I think that is an important part, but you need to have a much broader strategy. I think it's the age-old thing of, for me, AI is a technology whose impact is grossly overestimated in the short term, massively underestimated in the long term. And I really think AI is that. I don't see us losing, a couple of million jobs next year, as some people predict. But, it's going to change the way everyone works, without a doubt. And we know companies who are not technology companies, who don't have a technology product, don't have a technology team, but the CEO is pushing AI down on every single staff member. The CEO is saying AI is going to change the way we do business. And that's not because from a technology perspective, that's just from a decision-making perspective, that's from a marketing perspective, that's from a business development perspective. And so if companies are doing that and adopting that strategy, and should I say the most Luddite companies are doing that, then, that's where we need to be. That's what we should be encouraging. So I think the broader definition of education is important. I think having a population that is comfortable and competent with AI is very important. But shoving it on the the student population is not going to be sufficient.
What do you think about data centers, energy infrastructure, fossil fuels, renewables? What strategy should we look at in that regard?
I can give you a very uninformed answer. If you want, but it is merely my opinion, and it is a opinion based on climate change is real. We shouldn't be generating excess use of energies. That's just stupid. If we're going to fix our climate change problem, on the other hand, we need to attract investment to the country. These are nuanced problems. Asking me, who's not in this sector, I'll happily wax lyrical for 20 minutes about it and pretend I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't.
Okay. It's an incredibly difficult one to answer, because I can see all the jobs we don't get because of my international role, but I also can understand there's no power on the grid and I can't be able to manage through all those different ways. If you were to give your own kids advice, starting up a new venture, what advice would you offer about investment, taking on funding? These are your kids now. Yeah. What would you be saying to them?
I think you have to do it with your eyes wide open. So venture capital investing is great for companies of a certain type, but it's not great for all companies. And you can be an extremely successful company and a great company without taking VC. It pains me when I talk to founders and they believe their only route to success is through VC funding. Or even worse, they think achieving VC funding is success. It's not. Success comes from strong revenue. Success comes from exits.
Because it is on LinkedIn anyway.
Yeah.
25, 50 million VC funding, 155. It's like you have made it.
Yes.
That is how it's portrayed. Everyone will talk about it. But really, that's when the journey starts, right?
Or at least the journey gets harder.
Yeah.
Because people have started in their bedrooms, ideally, 10 years earlier. But if you take on 50 million, if you take on a VC investor, that VC investor is hoping for 10 times their money back. So, you've gone from having a company that you could happily sell for 1 or 2 million, you get 1 or 2 million for yourself. Now you've taken on 50 million in funding. You have to sell for 502 million just to get 2 million for yourself. Numbers are wrong.
But it's never portrayed like that, though. No, it's never portrayed like that.
If you talk to VCs, it is. Because we often get frustrated by people crowing about venture capital, raising funding. Revenue is where it's at. Revenue is much more important. Like if you achieve actual revenue is people are giving you money for your product. People should not take on VC money if they want to build a generational business. Have
you had situations where you've worked with different founders and just the weight of having the VC expectation, the new dynamic of those decisions, it's just crushed them, where they just found it really difficult to, fly off and just do something different because they just can't take, it's no longer fun?
Yes and no. So normally we have a very frank conversations up front, because if you take on VC money, you are selling your business. Your business is going to be sold in the next 10 years. And that's, it's not because the VC is going to force it. It's not there in any legals or anything like that. It's not required, but that's the journey you're going on. Like, you are shaking hands with the person across the table to say, okay, we're going to sell this business, because that's the only way the VC makes money, is for the business to be sold. So, that conversation happens early on, and people are happy with that, because if people want to build generational businesses, they shouldn't take on VC money. Like, they can't be passed on to it. I have not had a case where the weight of a VC investment has fallen on people. I did have a case where the weight of a failed exit fell on someone. So
how would you define a failed exit?
So what happened was, we had a company that was doing well, it's doing okay, doing fine. Early stage, maybe $1 million or so in revenue, but it's growing. It was early days. It wasn't, it was a couple of years away yet from success and from owning the market. And they had a very significant partner with a US multinational, very large US multinational, and a relatively junior person in the US multinational said, "We'll buy you." And I can't remember the number. They said, "We'll buy you for 50 million or 100 million or 10 million. I literally can't remember the number, but it was a decent number. They said they buy it. And the CEO rang me very excited and said, "They will buy me." And I said, "I don't think they will. He's very junior. He doesn't have this authority, but fine. It's a decent exit for us all. If you want to pursue it, go for it." And he pursued that for about 6 months. And they did, to be fair to the US multinational, they did a huge amount of due diligence, and they got very excited about it. And there was loads of talk about the CEO moving to America and where he'd live, and all got very excited and got very, very real. And then one day it actually reached the desk of the CEO of the multinational. He said, "No, we're not buying that. That's just stupid." And that was the end of it. And the hardest thing is for the CEO to wake up, having received that news on the Friday, to wake up and go back to work on the Monday, where he'd pictured himself on the beach, whereas in his mind he was done. He had achieved his aims. In his mind, he was literally living on the beach in his mind. And on Monday morning to have to go back to the grindstone. On Monday morning to have to go back to grinding out more sales and more sales and more sales. And he lasted in the business only another 6 months. Where he just...
So that's kind of just expectation management, isn't it?
It's the expectation management for individuals, expectation management for, what he thought was feasible, what he thought was realistic.
Yeah, because their expectations were just totally mismanaged. And even though you'd kind of been a Sherpa to say, actually, realistically, this is how this is going to play out, they had thought they'd gone all in. So then their psyche of, well, actually, my expectation is this, versus actually nothing's really changed. It's just you still got the same business. You're still going to work. They're not purchasing you, but everything else is still the same.
And still going very well, and still very successful, and still growing.
But he viewed that as not being successful anymore because his new idea was X, because that was mismanaged.
Because what happened was someone handed the Euro Millions ticket and said, "This is the winning ticket."
Yeah.
And I said, "That's probably not the winning ticket." But he carried around the winning Euro Millions ticket for 6 months until he finally checked the numbers.
Yeah, until he thought it was. Yeah.
And then it turns out he hadn't won the Euro Millions.
So you're doing quite a bit of work in the local ecosystem as well, and trying to help. As we were walking up here, we were talking a little bit about some of the stuff you did with Enterprise Ireland and some of the founders. How do we make being a founder a little bit easier, raising money a little bit easier, the process being a little bit more straightforward, and creating kind of an environment that you can actually go, well, I'm not worried about job losses. I'm actually more like, I'm going to go and set up my own business, and I want to go and use these technologies to generate new ideas, new customers, and actually start that. How do we become more entrepreneurial as a country?
So to give people context, I've been helping out Enterprise Ireland a little bit. They've been doing a national founders tour where they've been going around and listening to founders across it. So that's feedback that Enterprise Ireland has been gathering. And so Enterprise Ireland has a strategy to deliver to support 1,000 new startups by 2030, which is a very ambitious strategy and one that they're very committed to and delivering on. So Enterprise Ireland has been engaging on a tour to Letterkenny, to Cork, to Galway, to listen to founders to best understand how they can grow the Irish startup ecosystem. So that's something that's very important to Enterprise Ireland. We'll be looking to help out in that. But you've also been asking the broader question, which is, how do we make an entrepreneurial economy? How do we make it entrepreneurial? And outside of Enterprise Ireland, I think that really starts to education. I mean, we come back to the education point. How do you teach teenagers that it is good to try different things? It is good to take risks. It is good to fail. We may not necessarily good to fail, but it's okay to fail. That failing is part of the journey. Failing is part of the process. And I think, if I look at, so I used to work for some very large US multinationals, And I'm very familiar with some very large Irish multinational or Irish companies, shall we say, some of the largest Irish companies. For me, one of the biggest differences in culture is risk. I know people in some of the largest Irish companies who, whose title is, their name, John, their title, manager of massive division, and their subtitle is, oh, he's that guy in 1991 who tried something and it failed. Like it hangs around their neck as a millstone. They tried something and it failed, and that's forever tarnished them. That's not a culture you see in US multinationals. You try things, they fail, and okay, you tried it, you failed, you did your best, on to the next one. So I think to create an entrepreneurial economy, we have to be okay with failure. If you come back to, I have a view that we have a lot of Irish startups with fantastic founders. And we maybe have founders who don't want to fail, and so you maybe spend an extra 6 months, an extra 12 months in a company that they really know I should be on to my second idea, as opposed to driving the first one on. So I think if people were more comfortable with failure, more comfortable with it not being a bad thing, and as a step to the next thing, we'd have companies that founders that would stop earlier, pivot to the second idea, third idea, and move on, and can have a quicker iteration process.
Yes, so developing that kind of mindset as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing the feedback comes from that, from Enterprise Ireland's journey around, and I think it's a wonderful goal to actually have 1,000 companies by 2030.
And Enterprise Ireland they're listening to the customers. The customers are the Irish founders, the Irish ecosystem, and it's great for an organisation to be out there so proactively listening to its customers. Yeah,
I think it's brilliant to be doing that. David Bowles, Managing Partner of the Yield Lab, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
No, Mark, very happy to meet you, and best of luck with everything.
At AI Ireland, we're helping over 1 million people become literate using artificial intelligence. And we do this in a variety of different ways. The easiest way is our AI literacy program, where we do a 60 to 90 minute program via virtual Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where we teach the rules of the road of AI, from basic business concepts to ethical and resourceful decisions on how you actually use AI every day. This is our literacy foundation. The second way we use AI training is within our workshops. These are either virtual or in-person workshops where executive leaders come and use some of the AI tools that we make available for them, that they can actually start to take their own documents and reimagine savings of time and energy, but taking away friction from the work that they do each day. Later on, we actually empower different departments, HR, finance, sales, marketing, operations, and start to utilize AI across relevant use cases to upskill their different types of departments. If you're interested and ready to go on your AI journey, we'll be able to showcase over 700 applications of applied AI about how you can actually stop reinventing the wheel and start using AI for your organization today. If you want to start out and find out a little bit about the golden thread of activities that we've got to allow you to start to utilize AI straight away, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll give you a good comprehensive overview about the arts of the possible, minus the hype, purely applied. See you then.